romantic ideals, and the pursuit of validation through relationships. Yet many of us find ourselves empty, hollow, or dissatisfied, despite being surrounded by others. We yearn for companionship, but find ourselves still searching for meaning. This emptiness is not a flaw of the people we surround ourselves with, but a deeper issue within us. Relying on others for our happiness is a deeply ingrained habit shaped by societal pressures, cultural norms, and personal experiences. From a young age, many of us are taught relationships, whether familial, romantic, or friendly, are the cornerstone of emotional fulfillment. The idea that another person can complete us is often romanticized in books, movies, and even in the way we are raised. We are led to believe that happiness is a shared experience, something that can only be fully realized. Someone else plays a pivotal role in our lives. This belief, while seemingly comforting, is a source of endless dissatisfaction. When we place our happiness in the hands of others, we are giving up control over our emotional well-being. We are essentially waiting for the approval, affection, or attention of someone else to validate our worth or fill the emotional gaps within us. The problem with this is that people are unpredictable. Their actions, moods, and availability can fluctuate, and we cannot depend on them to always act in a way that meets our needs or expectations. When their behavior does not align with our desires, we feel hurt, disappointed, and rejected. This leaves us constantly at the mercy of the people around us, trapped in a cycle of hope and despair. Moreover, this dependency on others for happiness can lead to a dangerous pattern of seeking validation. When we rely on external sources for our self-worth, we risk losing sight of who we are and what truly matters to us. Our identity becomes intertwined with the approval of others, making it difficult to feel whole without their validation. This can create a constant need for reassurance, leading to insecurity and a lack of confidence. Instead of building a strong sense of self from within, we are forever chasing approval, unable to stand firm in our own values or desires. Additionally, the expectation that will make us happy can place an unfair burden on those relationships. No one person can meet all of our emotional needs, and expecting them to do so can lead to disappointment for both parties. When one partner, friend, or family member is expected to be everything: a confidant, a source of joy, a problem solver, it can create unrealistic demands. This can lead to tension, frustration, and ultimately a sense of emptiness when those expectations are not fulfilled. Even if the other person genuinely cares for us, they may not always be able to provide the kind of emotional support we need, leaving us feeling unsupported and alone. Furthermore, relying on others for happiness prevents us from developing the self-sufficiency required for emotional resilience. Life is full of challenges and setbacks, and if we are not equipped to handle these alone, we will always feel vulnerable and dependent. True emotional strength comes from the ability to find peace within ourselves, regardless of external circumstances. By looking inward for contentment, we cultivate a sense of self-reliance that allows us to face life's challenges with confidence, without being tethered to the actions or approval of others. In the end, while relationships are undeniably important and bring joy and meaning to our lives, they should not be the sole source of our happiness. When we learn to nurture our inner sense of contentment and value ourselves without needing others to validate us, we free ourselves from the cycle of dissatisfaction. Only then can we experience genuine fulfillment, not dependent on the fluctuating moods or behaviors of others, but rooted in the steadiness of our own hearts. The idea of relationships is deeply ingrained in our cultural narratives, from fairy tales to romantic comedies. We are often led to believe that true love, friendship, or any meaningful connection should be flawless, where everything aligns seamlessly and every need is met without flaw. This portrayal of perfection creates unrealistic expectations that leave us perpetually chasing something that doesn't exist. The quest for perfection in relationships sets us up for inevitable disappointment, because in reality, no person or connection can ever meet such impossible standards. At its core, the perfection fallacy is about believing that the ideal relationship is one where there are no conflicts, no flaws, and no moments of discomfort. We imagine that true love, for instance, should be effortless, that our partners should intuitively understand our needs, share our thoughts without saying a word, and never make mistakes. This expectation sets us up to view every minor imperfection as a failure. When disagreements arise, when a partner forgets something important, or when someone does not live up to our expectations, it feels like the relationship is broken or that the person isn't the one. These moments are inevitable in every relationship, and yet the perfection fallacy causes us to overemphasize them, feeling they should not exist in the first place. This fallacy creates a toxic cycle of dissatisfaction. We begin to view flaws or mistakes as signs that something is wrong, when in fact they are a natural part of human connection. Relationships are dynamic and full of complexities. People have their own histories, emotions, quirks, and ways of communicating. Expecting them to fit into an idealized mold only creates tension as we push our partners, friends, or family members to be something they are not. Every time they fall short of these unattainable standards, frustration and resentment build, leaving both parties feeling misunderstood and disconnected. Moreover, the perfection often prevents us from appreciating the beauty in imperfection. Every relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or familiar, is a mixture of mixed strengths and weaknesses, good times and bad. The flaws and challenge rise can actually serve as opportunities for growth, intimacy, and learning. When we allow space for imperfection, we give ourselves the chance to truly know and love another person for who they are, not for who we want them to be. It is in these moments of imperfection that deeper connections can form, where vulnerability and understanding take root. On the other hand, holding on to perfection also leads us to create false narratives about our relationships. We may compare our connections to others, measuring their worth against an unrealistic ideal. Social media often exacerbates this, as we see curated glimpses of other people's lives that appear flawless, making us feel as though our own relationships fall short. This constant comparison fuels dissatisfaction as we measure the reality of our own connections against the fantasy versions we see online. The perfection we see in others, often just an illusion, filtered through the lens of what we want to believe rather than what truly exists. In the pursuit of perfection, we also risk neglecting the value of effort and compromise. Every meaningful relationship requires work. There will be moments where understanding and compromise are needed. When we expect perfection, we fail to see that these efforts, these compromises, and these moments of growth are what make relationships meaningful. They are not signs of failure, but of resilience, care, and a desire to nurture something important. Ultimately, the pursuit of perfection in relationships sets us up for a constant cycle of disappointment. It leads us to focus on what's missing or imperfect, instead of embracing the unique and evolving nature of human connection. Instead of seeking perfection, we should aim for authenticity, understanding, and mutual respect, values that allow relationships to grow in ways that are far more fulfilling than any idealized notion of flawlessness. Self-knowledge is the foundation of any meaningful connection, whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or even professional interactions. If we do not have a clear understanding of who we are, what we need, or what our boundaries are, we are setting ourselves up for shallow and disconnected relationships. Without this inner awareness, it becomes impossible to form genuine connections with others because we cannot communicate effectively what we require or expect from those relationships. Often we search for validation or fulfillment from others, but without knowing ourselves deeply, we can't even recognize what would actually bring us satisfaction. One of the key aspects of self-knowledge is emotional awareness. If we are not in tune with our feelings, it becomes incredibly difficult to express them in a way that others can understand and respond to. For example, we might feel upset or hurt by something a loved one said or did, but if we don't understand why we're feeling that way, we cannot explain it to them. Instead of articulating our emotions clearly, we might react impulsively with anger or withdrawal, leaving the other person confused or defensive. When we lack the ability to recognize and process our own emotions, we cannot engage in meaningful, Open communication. The result is a breakdown in connection where both parties are left unsure of the underlying issues. Furthermore, self-knowledge, understanding our values and priorities. Without knowing what is most important to us in life, we cannot align ourselves who share those values or respect our boundaries. For instance, if we value independence, but enter into a relationship where the other person is overly dependent, we may feel suffocated or frustrated without understanding the root cause. Similarly, if we place a high priority on loyalty, but find ourselves in a relationship where trust is lacking, the feeling of betrayal can seem overwhelming. These conflicts often arise because we haven't taken time to explore what truly matters to us. We enter relationships without the clarity necessary to navigate potential conflicts or challenges, and we make ourselves compromising on things that ultimately leave us feeling unfulfilled. Another critical aspect of self-knowledge is recognizing our needs, both emotional and practical. Many people enter relationships thinking that their partner, friend, or family member will fulfill their emotional needs without understanding what those needs actually are. We may look for love, affection, support, or attention, but if we haven't explored what truly makes us feel loved or supported, we can end up feeling disappointed when those needs aren't met in the way we expected. For instance, some people feel love through physical touch, while others value acts of service or words of affirmation. If we don't understand our own need or communicate them clearly, we set ourselves and our partners up for frustration. The same goes for professional or social relationships without self-awareness. We can find ourselves overwhelmed, burnt out, or unfulfilled because we haven't set the proper boundaries or expressed our needs for space, support, or recognition. In relationships, we also need to know our limits, what we can tolerate and what crosses a line for us. Without self-knowledge, we may find ourselves in situations where we're being asked to give more than we can or to endure things that cause us discomfort or pain. Because we haven't defined these boundaries for ourselves, we may push aside to please others or avoid confrontation. This leads to resentment and emotional exhaustion as we sacrifice our own well-being for the sake of the relationship. If we are not aware of our own emotional and physical limits, we allow others to cross boundaries without even realizing it until it's too late. Over time, this lack of self-awareness chips away at our sense of self, and we may feel disconnected from what we really are or what we want from life. Ultimately, self-knowledge is not just about understanding our emotions, needs, and values. It's about developing a sense of internal clarity that allows us to navigate the world and our relationships with purpose. It is through this deep awareness that we are able to recognize when a relationship is not serving us, when we need to assert our boundaries, or when we need to communicate more openly. Only when we understand ourselves fully can we form authentic connections with others that are grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and shared values. Without this foundation, relationships become transactional rather than genuine, and we are left feeling disconnected from others and, more importantly, from ourselves. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, something to be avoided at all costs. Many people fear opening themselves up emotionally, fearing rejection, judgment, or hurt. This fear creates walls that shield us from truly connecting with others, leaving our relationships shallow and unfulfilling. The problem is that without vulnerability, we cannot experience the depth and authenticity that make relationships meaningful. It is only when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable that we can truly connect with others on an emotional level, building trust and intimacy. The fear of vulnerability stems from past experiences, cultural conditioning, and personal insecurities from a young age. We may have been taught to hide our feelings or to maintain an facade of strength. In many, emotional openness is seen as a sign of weakness, and we are encouraged to keep our vulnerabilities hidden. As a result, we learn to suppress our emotions, putting on a mask that protects us from potential harm, but also prevents us from experiencing true connection. This fear often leads us to isolate ourselves emotionally, holding back parts of ourselves that are essential for building deep, meaningful relationships. Without vulnerability, our interactions with others remain superficial. We may engage in small talk, share surface-level experiences, and keep light to avoid uncomfortable emotions. However, these interactions fail to create the bond that comes from truly understanding and being understood. When withhold our true feelings and thoughts, we deny others the opportunity to know who we truly are. This creates a barrier that prevents genuine connection from forming, leaving us with relationships that feel empty or unsatisfying. The more we avoid vulnerability, the more disconnected we become from others and ourselves. One of the most significant consequences of avoiding vulnerability is the inability to build trust. Trust is the foundation of any strong relationship, and it is built through emotional openness and shared experiences. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we demonstrate that we trust others with our innermost feelings, fears, and desires. This mutual sharing creates a sense of safety and understanding, allowing the relationship to grow and deepen over time. Without vulnerability, trust remains shallow, and the relationship lacks the emotional depth that makes it meaningful. We may find ourselves stuck in a cycle of surface-level interactions, where the true essence of the relationship is never fully realized. In addition to hindering trust, the fear of vulnerability also keeps us from fully expressing our needs and desires. Many people fear that revealing their true feelings will make them appear weak, needy, or unworthy of love and care. As a result, they suppress their emotions and settle for relationships that don't meet their needs. This emotional suppression leads to feelings of resentment, frustration, and emotional emptiness as we long for deeper connection but feel unable to express our true selves. Without vulnerability, we cannot communicate our needs effectively, and the people around us cannot understand how to support us in meaningful ways. This leaves us feeling misunderstood and isolated, even in relationships where we are surrounded by others. Furthermore, the fear of vulnerability can prevent us from taking risks in relationships. We may hold back from truly committing to someone, fearing that opening ourselves up will lead to rejection or heart attack. However, avoiding vulnerability only perpetuates the cycle of emotional distance. It is through taking emotional risks, by sharing our true selves and allowing others to see our imperfections, that we create the opportunity for authentic love and connection. Only when we let down our guard and embrace vulnerability can we experience the intimacy and closeness that are the hallmarks of fulfilling relationships. In the long run, avoiding vulnerability only leads to emotional emptiness. Relationships built on walls of fear and guardedness lack the emotional depth and connection that make us feel truly alive. We may find ourselves feeling lonely despite being surrounded by others because we are not allowing ourselves to be seen for who we truly are. By avoiding vulnerability, we deny ourselves the chance to experience the joy of authentic connection, and we rob others of the opportunity to love us for who we truly are. To overcome this fear, we must learn to embrace vulnerability, recognizing that it is through emotional openness that we create the relationships and connections bring us true fulfillment. The illusion of control in relationships is one of the most subtle and pervasive issues that many people face. It's the belief that we can shape, dictate, or manipulate the outcome of our relationships, whether with a partner, friend, or family member. This desire to control often comes from a deep-seated need for security and predictability. We want to feel that we are in charge of our emotional well-being, and we mistakenly believe that controlling the behavior of others will provide this sense of stability. However, the more we try to control relationships, the more we stifle their natural growth and prevent authentic connections from forming. At its core, the illusion of control stems from a fear of the unknown. Relationships, by their very nature, are unpredictable. People have their own thoughts, feelings, and experiences that shape how they behave and interact with others. When we try to control these dynamics, we are essentially imposing a structure on something that should be fluid and evolving. Control leads to rigid expectations, and when these expectations are not met, disappointment and frustration follow. The person we are trying to control might begin to feel resentful or stifled, as they sense that their freedom and individuality are being compromised. This creates a tension that hampers the natural flow of connection, making the relationship feel forced or inauthentic. The desire to control also prevents us from accepting people for who they truly are, instead of embracing their imperfections, quirks, and differences. We try to mold them into an image of what we think they should be. This desire for perfection, whether it's expecting someone to behave in a certain way, meet specific needs, or conform to our expectations, robs us of the opportunity to truly know and appreciate the person for who they are. In turn, we miss out on the depth and richness of a relationship that comes from accepting another person as a whole, with all their flaws and complexities. By trying to control the relationship, we are essentially rejecting the organic nature of human interaction, where growth, change, and discovery occur naturally. Additionally, control creates an imbalance in relationships. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding, where both parties have the freedom to express themselves and grow. When one person attempts to control the relationship, they create an environment of inequity where one person's needs, desires, and emotions take precedence over the others. This dynamic leads to a lack of trust and intimacy, as the controlled person may begin to feel alienated or stifled. Over time, this imbalance erodes the connection, leaving both individuals feeling disrespected or unfulfilled. True connection thrives in an environment of equal power and mutual respect, not in one where control is exerted over the other. Trying to control relationships also undermines the potential for growth and evolution. Relationships are not static. They are living, breathing entities that change over time. When we try to control every aspect of a relationship, we prevent it from evolving organic ways. People change, circumstances change, and relationships evolve as a result. By forcing a relationship into a predefined mold, we deny it the opportunity to adapt, to mature, and to deepen. The natural flow of connection is hindered, and we miss out on the profound experiences and growth that come from embracing the fluidity of human relationships. Furthermore, attempting to control relationships often leads to insecurity and anxiety if we feel that we must constantly control the other person's actions, thoughts, or behaviors to maintain the relationship. We are placing an enormous burden on ourselves. This leads to a constant cycle of stress and worry, as we fear that any misstep or deviation from our expectations will cause the relationship to unravel. Rather than enjoying the relationship for what it is, we become consumed by the need to keep it under control. And the joy that should come from genuine connection is replaced by fear and doubt. Ultimately, the illusion of control creates a barrier to true intimacy and connection. The more we try to manage and dictate the course of a relationship, the less space there is for real, meaningful connection to grow. By relinquishing the need to control and allowing relationships to unfold naturally, we open ourselves up to deeper, more authentic experiences with others. We learn to trust, to let go of expectations, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with being in a relationship. It is through this trust and acceptance that we allow our relationships to thrive, grow, and become truly fulfilling. The gap between expectation and reality is a constant source of disappointment in relationships. From the beginning, we often build an idealized version of what a relationship should look like, based on romanticized notions, cultural portrayals, or even past experiences. We create mental images of how we expect our partners, friends, or family members to behave, how they should make us feel, and how the relationship itself will unfold. These expectations become the lens through which we view our interactions. And when reality doesn't align with our ideals, frustration and disappointment inevitably follow. One of the most common sources of this idealization comes from media portrayals of relationships, movies, television shows, and even social medias and relationships in a way that is often disconnected from the complexities of real life. We see couples who always seem to understand each other perfectly, who never fight, and who are constantly filled with passion and joy. We imagine that this is what a relationship should be, an endless cycle of happiness and harmony. However, real relationships are not like this. They require work, compromise, and a willingness to navigate conflicts. When the relationship doesn't live up to the idealized version we've constructed, we feel let down, wondering why things aren't as perfect as we imagine. The trouble with idealizing relationships is that it blinds us to the reality of human imperfection. No one person can fulfill every expectation we have, and no relationship can constantly meet our emotional needs without challenge. People are multifaceted, and they bring their own baggage, experiences, and vulnerabilities to the table. The moment we place someone on a pedestal, expecting them to meet all our ideals, we are setting them up to fail. This can create a cycle of disappointment, where we constantly look for flaws or shortcomings that confirm our unrealistic expectations, all the while ignoring the beauty and value of what the relationship offers in its own authentic form. Expectations also prevent us from embracing the natural ebb and flow of relationships. Real relationships are not linear. They have ups and downs, moments of connection and disconnect, periods of joy and times of struggle. When we focus too heavily the idealized version, we lose sight of the depth that comes from experiencing challenges together. Every relationship has conflict, moments of doubt, and emotional highs and lows. But when we expect only the positive experiences, we miss the opportunities for growth and understanding that come from facing difficulties. Click, for example, can lead to greater intimacy when handled with care, as it provides the chance for deeper communication and empathy. However, if we view conflict as a failure or an indication that the relationship should be, we miss the chance to deepen our bond. Furthermore, the gap between expectation and reality in relationships often stems from our own insecurities or unmet needs. Sometimes we project our own desires for love, validation, or happiness onto our relationships, thinking they can provide all the fulfillment we are seeking. This leads to unrealistic expectations about how much our partners or friends should be able to give us emotionally. We may expect them to constantly reassure us, support us, or make us feel whole. But this puts an unfair burden on the relationship, as no one person can meet all of our emotional needs. When these needs are not met in the way we expect, it can lead to frustration and the feeling that something is missing. In addition, the focus on idealized expectations can hinder our ability to appreciate the small, everyday moments that make relationships meaningful. When we are fixated on the perfect relationship, we may overlook the subtle but profound moments of connection, such as a quiet conversation, a shared laugh, or a gesture of kindness. These are the moments that make a relationship truly fulfilling, but they often don't fit into the grand narrative we envision. By continually comparing our relationship to an idealized standard, we fail to appreciate the authenticity and uniqueness of what we actually have. Ultimately, focusing too much on idealized versions of relationships prevents us from embracing the reality of human connection. While it's natural to have desires and hopes for our relationships, these should not be rigid expectations that dictate how we experience them. Real relationships are messy, complex, and beautiful in their imperfection. When we let go of unrealistic standards and learn to accept relationships for what they are, we open ourselves up to deeper, more fulfilling connections that aren't based on a fantasy, but on the rich reality of shared human experience. In the end, it's essential to remember that relationships are not meant to fit into a perfect mold or follow a scripted narrative. They are meant to be experienced in their full complexity, beautiful in their imperfections, and rich in their growth. By letting go of idealized expectations and embracing the reality of human connection, we open the door to deeper understanding, trust, and fulfillment. It's through accepting the ups and downs, the flaws and strengths, that we truly experience the depth of a relationship. So, rather than clinging to an image of perfection, let's learn to value authenticity and vulnerability that come with allowing our relationships to unfold naturally, free from the weight of unrealistic expectations. Only then can we truly find the meaning and joy we seek in our connections with others.